Hello, this is Aaron Mean of SG Gaming Info, and welcome to my video review of Tom Clancy's The Division. Tom Clancy's The Division is a post-pandemic open-world RPG set in New York City. You take on the role of an agent from The Division, a special task force that consists of sleeper agents that only become active during a catastrophic emergency. Your mission as a Division agent is to restore order and find information on the virus that brought the city and the world to its knees. When it comes to story, The Division is a little slow, as many aspects of the story, such as what happened to the first Division agents after they arrived in the city, and the search for a cure and information on the virus, takes a long time to get going. However, the world creation is done at a quick yet understandable pace, as the game tells us how the pandemic began with the perpetrators of the virus lacing dollar bills, which were used by stores on Black Friday with the virus, and how things began to go downhill rapidly with the breakdown of social order. The breakdown of the social norms is what makes The Division interesting, as we are shown bodies piled up inside of roads, people taking up arms in an attempt to take advantage of the situation, and people walking around in a state of almost permanent shock. What also intrigued me is the fact that, unlike other post-pandemic games, such as Naughty Dog's The Last of Us, The Division takes place shortly after the pandemic started. While the setting is interesting, the gameplay is thankfully too. While The Division at first glance is a standard third-person cover-based shooter, the game in reality is a mixture of elements from both RPG and third-person shooters. In many ways, this mixture helps the game stand out, but also holds it back. In terms of combat, the game uses numbers to determine the course of battle, as getting the right gear with the right stats takes priority over running and gunning. Because if you don't have the right gear, enemy encounters can turn into a battle of attrition, as regular and elite enemies have large health pools. If you're looking at the gameplay past the combat, the game does offer a lot of RPG elements, including a crafting system that is based around finding blueprints and breaking down existing weapons and gear, a recalibration station that allows you to alter the stats of a weapon or piece of gear, weapon and gear attachments that allow you to modify an attribute, side missions, and most importantly, a base management element. The base management element of The Division is incredibly important, as building a base of operation allows you to unlock skills such as a handy auto turret, talents, and passive buffs in the form of perks. To upgrade your base, you need to complete story missions or take part in encounters. Completing either a mission or encounter rewards you with upgrade points for one of the base's 3 wings: medical, tech, and security. The base is broken down into these 3 wings as it helps divide the skills, talents, and perks out. Now, I also stated there are side missions, but these exist mostly as a way for you to level up at a constant rate and aren't anything special, as they can be broken down into rescue, procurement, uplink repair, bounty, and defend a supply drop missions. The many RPG elements are a welcome inclusion in the game, as it gives the game a more RPG focus, which is something surprisingly rare in AAA RPG shooters. Personally, I like the base of operation base management feature, as it helps tie all the elements together, and it gives you motivation to explore the city and continue playing past the story. Now, I know I went away from the combat to discuss the other elements of the game, but let's talk about the enemies you encounter. In total, there are 4 enemy factions: rioters, ex-cons known as the Rikers, a PMC group, and finally the Cleaners, a group that believes that the best way to cleanse the city of the virus is to burn everyone suspected of having the virus. In terms of enemy variety isn't much, but it is an interesting grouping, especially the Cleaners, as encounters with them can be bone-chilling as you see them burn people alive. In regards to enemy AI, the enemies are mixed. Some will work on trying to draw you out of cover with grenades, while others will just run around like headless chickens, allowing you to easily kill them. So while gameplay and combat is very RPG focused, what else does the game feature? Well, the game does offer a matchmaking service that allows you to partner up with other players to take part in missions or to just wander the streets of New York. Now, while the game does like to point out it is ideal to team up with another player for missions, it isn't a necessity, as the missions can be done solo, although I recommend having a friendly auto turret on standby. While you can team up with players for co-optional play, you can also go up against them in an area known as the Dark Zone. This is a special PvP enabled area that allows you to either work against or with other players in an attempt to get some powerful loot. The Dark Zone creates an interesting look into the psyche of other players, as you never know if the player approaching you is going to shoot you or simply walk by you, and at the same time, the player could be wondering the same about you. In many ways, the Dark Zone is a kind of social deduction game. Now, while I said the Dark Zone contains some of the best loot, there is a catch. You can only carry by default 7 items, and to get the loot out, you need to go through an extraction zone and wait about 78 seconds for a helicopter to arrive and take your loot. However, while this is happening, NPCs or other players can attack you, and if they attack and kill you, you lose the loot you found, which I found out much to my dismay as I got shot making a break for the helicopter. Now, while I mentioned setting earlier, there is one other element that helps expand the world beyond what you see, and that is collectibles. The Division consists of a large number of collectibles, including videos, phone calls, and the Echo. This Echo allows you to see a snapshot of an event. Together, all the collectibles allow you to piece together the world before the pandemic, the weeks during the height of the pandemic, and how certain characters attempted to survive. Speaking of characters, there isn't much to say as they all feel pretty bland. You have Fei Lao, who is supposed to be your partner but gets injured early on, Commander Benitez, who is a hard-nosed commander of the JTF, Paul Rhodes, a cynic that looks after the tech, and Dr. Jessica Candle, a doctor that is driven to stop the virus. Honestly, there isn't a lot to say about them, other than the fact they exist to further the story. Now, I think it's time to talk about some of the game's issues, and unfortunately, the game has a few. The most prevalent issue I encountered is the incredibly slow texture load times, which led to some hilarious moments where objects and characters changed from their low texture quality to their high texture quality right in front of me. Another issue I encountered was the issue with the loading of areas. My worst encounter with this was when a ground mesh didn't load in with the rest of an area and I fell through the world. Now, I won't say much about the graphics and audio, but I believe that a special mention needs to be made to the game's dynamic weather, which can change from clear to almost zero visibility snowstorm rather quickly. Graphically, there isn't much to say as the bad texture pop-in annoyed me greatly, and the audio suffered from some momentary drops, which was rather immersion breaking, especially when I played with headphones on. So, in conclusion, Tom Clancy's The Division is a game that offers an amazing world with a good RPG focus. However, the game is let down by a flat story and numerous graphical and audio glitches. With that said, I give Tom Clancy's The Division a score of 8 out of 10, with the game's pros being amazing world with an interesting backstory, the Dark Zone is an amazing PvP zone, good use of RPG elements, building up your base of operations, and dynamic weather. The game's cons are the story feels flat, enemies appear bullet spongy, and the fact that I encountered numerous graphical and audio issues. Thank you for watching. Please like, favorite, and subscribe. For more gaming information, please visit sggaminginfo.com. And don't forget to like our Facebook page at facebook.com/sggaminginfo. And follow us on Twitter at sggaminginfo.